All right, we're here again for part 3 of the Q&A. We're in the Tommy Arena Hobby Shop here. It's actually a little quieter in here. It's a little easier to hear myself ask the questions and answer here. But we were kind of left off. We stopped off here with Scott. He says, how many countries are here and what classes do they run? Or is it just two-wheel mod? Who's your pick to win? Basically, I'm not exactly sure how many countries are here representing. I can find out an actual number. I don't want to throw out like 100 countries, and that would be incorrect. So we'll try to find out. We'll ask Masami because he seems to know everything here. But it's just two-wheel mod and four-wheel mod. They're separate. They're held separately. Two-wheel drive is first. Four-wheel drive is second. There's sort of a day break in between the classes. And my pick to win, it's going to be hard to kind of figure out at this point, but based on the warm-up results, you kind of have to give a little bit to Nayato in the four-wheel drive class. I think he's going to be tough to beat going by what he was doing at the warm-up race. I think Lee Martin kind of going in, you have to say that he's kind of the favorite in the two-wheel class. But it's a new track, new layout. We have a lot of competition here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jared Tebow right at the top. I think he's going to be very, very quick and to be reckoned with. I think this matches his style. And I think there's obviously a list of others as well. But, if I was just going to throw out maybe a surprise and then a solid pick, I would go surprise Jared in two-wheel and Nayato in four-wheel. That would just sort of be my one surprise and one solid pick. And obviously Jared winning wouldn't really be a surprise because he already won the last time. So we got a question from Welby. It says, what does this mean for tires? I think that what this means is, it's a control tire event. When you're on AstroTurf or carpet, it takes a certain type of tread pattern. Here, what you're using is sort of a mini spike, they call it in the rear, a stagger front. The mini spikes are, pretty large from what we're accustomed to now in our racing in the U.S., but, it's something that we used a lot in the 80s and the 90s. Were the tires that are actually being run here. I think what it means is if there becomes more of these surfaces around the world, you're going to see more tires being developed for them. Us specifically, we have some tires that we're in development with, and I think you're just going to see more of that. We got Pete asking, which is a good question here, have the days of old returned where there's prototype and one-off factory parts? He's seen a lot of pictures of new stuff. And also, have you seen or not seen any prototype cars besides Testament? And I think what is pretty easy to say is there's a lot of prototype cars here. I'd say the days of returning to the prototype cars, I think we are there at this race because essentially there was only about an eight-month lead time for the guys to get prepared. And I think what ended up happening is it caused a lot of the racers to actually the manufacturers to make changes that dramatic changes to their car, which is really showing up as a lot of prototype pieces. We talked about earlier, but between the Associateds, the TLRs, the hot bodies, and Kyosho, between all of them, there's a lot of one-off parts. And I think if this was on a traditional surface, say for some reason this was held in California at OCRC Raceway, they would be racing basically a B5M. Out of the box, and the other manufacturers would be doing something similar, but given the surfaces and the situation, I think that's what we're seeing a lot more one-off parts, which I think is nice. It's nice for the RC community. Everybody likes to see the spy shots, the new cars, the new development, and I think that's what's making this race kind of special. And kind of moving on, we got the guy is asking, does the color of the Astro matter, the blue versus green? Well, I don't actually think the blue part is AstroTurf. The blue part's more like a carpety, velvety feel, which I think is just for the infield, and the green itself is the AstroTurf, and I think that's pretty consistent throughout the whole track. And then there's carpet over the jumps, which is sort of like a grayish carpet, and they've used all of this material before. They used all at the warm-up race, so it is kind of broken in a little bit. Then we have James asked, do you think that if a company like JConcepts, others continue to make and push more products for carpet and Astro, Do you think we will see an increase of those tracks in the USA? Well, I think we've already seen an increase of those tracks in the USA, and it's probably for the reasons that there's a lot of things in the world, but there's when you're going to race indoors and you're going to run on this kind of surface, it does make things a little cleaner, neater, and maybe easier. So I think you're going to see more of it. I don't think it'll completely take over, but we're going to see more tracks using it, because I think there's going to be an opportunity for them to do what's best for their condition, which it may or may not be AstroTurf or carpet. I just came from Connecticut. They had an outdoor AstroTurf track and indoor carpet track. I was able to race on both on the same weekend, and it went really well. But then, you also go to another place where they have good dirt and they know how to handle it well, and there's really nothing like a good dirt racetrack too. So I think we're going to see a lot of variety, but it is going to spark more interest and more people trying it for sure. Chris is asking, is Astro like dirt where the grip will come up and does it form a groove? Yeah, I think what ends up happening is the AstroTurf starts to lay over. When you first get out there, it feels kind of deep to run on, like the car's sitting in kind of quicksand. It's got a lot of drag when you're off power, and the car tends to follow the grain of the turf and makes it kind of an odd feeling. I think what happens as the cars run is the turf lays over and it changes and it gets kind of packed down, and the cars get easier to drive and it feels maybe more conventional, which is, I think, what the guys are waiting for, and the lap times increase. I know Cody Newmandahl told me at the warm-up race when they started and when they finished, they were 3 seconds a lap faster at the warm-up than they were when they started to where they finished. So obviously the track does get better, and I think he's the kind of the proof of that. Another question from Rob. We release aluminum hub carriers? Yes, we will. We have some prototype samples we're going to show here this weekend in another video, but we do have some aluminum hub carriers for the B5M. Nathan asked, will front wings for four-wheel drive be produced, or will the new two-wheel front wings work? Well, the Mayfield did use our standard two-wheel drive wing on his four-wheel at the Surf City Classic. It wasn't a direct fit, but he made it work. I think you'll probably see that here as well in the four-wheel class. But maybe down the road, if we see it really catch on in four-wheel, we'll make specific ones. But I think that's kind of a wait and see. And we got another question from Nathan. Will the lowrider transmissions everyone's using for AstroTurf be able to work on high traction clay like SRS? And I think the answer there, I think, is also yes. I think you're going to see more of these cars being used on clay tracks or dirt tracks, as long as you have the grip and the traction available. For instance, we have tracks back home like New Red Hobbies, where I think these type of cars will work really well there, and I think we're going to see more of it. And I like to see it. I think it's nice to have the options with the transmission, and it makes the car work differently. And I think it's actually going to make the two-wheel cars even faster once again. And the last question here on our JConcepts Facebook page. Well, actually, it's not a question. This guy just says, bring home the win. So thanks, Jason, for the kind words. And we're going to answer a few more questions that were on my personal page, and we'll do that in another part. But we'll sign off on this one for now.